Good morning Malacanang Press Corps. Happy New Year and welcome sa unang press briefing ngayong taon with Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque. Good morning, sir.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Let me begin by saying that we're very happy that the Filipinos were found to be the third happiest people on earth, according to that Gallup poll. And we hope to be the happiest people this coming year. Let me begin with a statement on the New Year's Eve fireworks-related injuries. As you know, it was a substantial drop, 70% plus lower than previous year, and we hope that in the coming years there will be zero casualties, in fact. No? And we, of course, credit the dramatic decrease in injuries to the strict implementation of EO number 28. No? And I think we've proved to one and all that we can have a happy new year without people losing their fingers and losing their eyesight. No? On Agaton, we have a briefing as of 9 o'clock. Needless to say, national government through the NDRRMC continues to oversee relief and clearing operations in communities hit by Typhoon Agaton. It is notable that prior to the landfall of the tropical depression, thousands of families have preemptively evacuated and sought shelter in safe centers and nearby relatives. While we receive reports of 2 fatalities in Cebu, which is still being verified by the DILG, we're hoping that with the advisories and warnings provided, that there will be no other reported casualties. Now, on train, of course, you know that January 1 is the implementation of the train reform. Let me stress, though, that the implementation of train relates to the fact that those having an annual taxable income of $250,000 and below, or at least $21,000 a month, are now exempted from personal income tax. 13-month pay and other bonuses amounting to $90,000 are likewise tax exempt. However, as repeatedly mentioned by the Department of Finance and the Department of Trade and Industry, the imposition of excise taxes should not affect current prices now, because they will actually be effective on, well, for instance, on the fuel products. They are not to be imposed on old inventories. They are to be imposed on new deliveries, still to be made, meaning that inventories that already exist should not be subjected to the additional excise tax. We have also begun implementing the 200 pesos per month unconditional cash transfer amount as a measure of mitigating the effects of train, at least to the poorest of the poor in our communities. Now, the cash grant will be distributed between January to July 2018, and a technical working group is now being held in preparation for the timely release of this cash transfer. Now, the President would like to reiterate his prior instruction to the Cabinet to ignore any pleas to be made by any of his relatives in connection with any government transaction. The President is renewing his call that any and all of his relatives are not authorized, to approach anyone in government in connection with any government-related transaction, full stop. That applies to his children, his siblings, his cousins, his uncles, and aunts. No one in his family is authorized by him to have any financial interest in any government office, agency, or department. Now, I also received a communication from the Red Crescent Movement of Qatar. They donated $280,000 to victims of Typhoon Vinta. This was coursed through the Philippine National Red Cross. Also, as of 7 o'clock this morning, I read a text instructing me to hold in abeyance announcement of who it is that the President will sack next. Of course, this is not the first time it has happened. When he announced that he will fire an entire commission, he did not mention which commission first, and it took a couple of days before I was authorized to make the announcement. So although I was directed to announce as early as January 30, the instruction was to announce in our next press briefing, which is today. But of course, at the beginning of the day, I was asked to defer with the said announcement. Questions? Yes.
Question, Rose Novenaria. Microphone, please.
Hi, good morning, sir. Sir, ano po yung dahilan bakit pinigil ni Presidente yung pag-aanunsyo nyo nung sisibakin na opisyal ng gobyerno?
No reason cited, other than please hold in abeyance announcement.
May nabanggit po kayo sa isang radio interview kanina umaga na may connection ito sa legislative franchise?
Hindi, well, it was legal basis, yes. This was not coming from the President, but coming from PMS. This explanation, all that I received was to hold in abeyance, but when I inquired from PMS, what they said was they gave the President a copy of the legislative charter of the agency headed by the officer, no? And the President was reviewing the legislative charter of that agency.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, follow up. Other issue? Follow up? Other issue. Henry Uri to be followed by Vic Suminta.
Happy New Year and
Happy New Year.
good afternoon, Secretary. Masaya ang mga Pilipino, kabilang ang Pilipinas sa pinakamasayang bansa sa buong daigdig. Pero sasaya ba kami sa MRT? Wala na ba kaming mararanasang pagtirik at aberya?
Well, ginagawa po ng lahat ng gobyerno, no, para mas mapabuti ang pagtakbo ng MRT. Ulitin ko, ang problema lang naman po yung MRT sa EDSA. No? Wala naman po tayo naririnig na problema dun sa ilang mga tren natin along Taft Avenue and doon po sa dalawa pang linya, no? Sa Aurora Boulevard at saka dun sa connecting MRT with Taft Avenue. No?
Ano po ang pinakahuling direktiba ng Pangulo sa DOTR tungkol sa mabilis na pagsasaayos nito?
Well, gawin ang lahat na kinakailangan. Ang huling deklarasyon po ng ating DOTR, pinalitan na nila yung kanilang maintenance contractor. No? At ngayon po, ang nagpapatakbo ng MRT na yan ay ang gobyerno mismo. Wala po muna silang contractor habang hindi pa naibabalik yung Sumitomo ata.
So walang posibilidad na maibalik ko yung Sumitomo?
Well, alam ko po, patuloy ang pag-uusap nila, no, na maibalik ang Sumitomo. At kahit sino naman po pumasok dyan, no, tingin ko, Sumitomo will be the preferred maintenance at nagsalita na po ang DOTR nung nakaraan na nais nga nilang maibalik ang Sumitomo dyan.
Speaking of maintenance provider, how true is it na mayroong mga iba pang mga kumpanya, may iba pang mga foreign company na gustong makilahok at pumasok dito sa maintenance and operations nitong MRT?
Can you give me more data, more information on this?
Parang meron yata may nabasa ako na isang Spanish company or provider company na gusto hong pumasok dito. Nakarating na ho ba ito sa palasyo? Anong estado na ho nito?
Well, I'm not sure, no, but I will inquire immediately after. The President will already be in the palace and I will inquire from him if he knows about a Spanish company that wants to enter as well. No?
Thank you, sir.
May follow-up sa MRT? May follow-up lang si Dexter Ganibe sa tanong ni Rose. Microphone, please.
Secretary, good morning. Sec, follow-up lang doon sa naunang tanong ni Rose Navenario. Sir, linawin na natin, yung i-anunsyo nyo po ba ay nasibak na or sisibakin pa lang?
Wala pa. Wala pa, no? I was tasked to announce that that he was terminated. Oops. Ay, talaga, galing nyo. Okay, but anyway, I didn't say anything about
Terminated
identity.
na po.
No, well, no. But I do not know now because the instruction was completely not to announce anything.
So, ibig pong sabihin,
I do not know.
hanggat
I-
hindi na-anunsyo yung kanyang
Hanggang
pagkasibak,
hindi
ay
po
mananatili siya.
na-anunsyo, hindi pa siya nasisibak.
Okay.
I will concede this much, no, na I know that there was a legal written document already being prepared, but I guess even that is held in abeyance.
So, yung legislative franchises po, kasama
Hindi siya
din-
franchise, legislative charter of the
charter
agency.
of the agency. Ibig sabihin,
Yung batas na bumuo ng
Na
ahensya,
lumilikha ng ahensya.
pinag-aaralan ni Presidente ngayon.
ito po ba ay maglalagay sa alanganin kapag hindi na si Bakat napalitan sa pwesto pagdating sa supply ng kuryente sa bansa sa mga susunod na buwan?
Hindi naman po.
Hindi naman.
Kasi wala naman pong dapat si Bakin doon sa sinasabi mong ahensya. Suspendido na po nga sila no? Ang problema, anong gagawin pagkatapos? No? Pero pinag-aaralan pa po yan ng Office of the Executive Secretary.
Okay.
If you're referring to the ERC.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dexter. Follow-up, Ina Andolong, CNN Philippines.
Hi, sir. Sir,
Hi,
pero
Ina.
nabanggit ninyo ngayon lang, he was terminated. So ngayon, it's unclear for now if binawi yun.
Well, I do not know because unless the document is signed, anything can be changed. No? So, actually, I want to come up with a policy now na when we announce, there should be a written document. But who am I? No? When I'm ordered to announce, I will announce. But since I was ordered not to announce anything, I'm not announcing anything.
Sir, dun sa isang interview niyo this morning, nabanggit ninyo, kasi some are suspecting that it might be a PCSO official because of the recent controversy or issue na nalutang doon recently. But you mentioned that the president already talked to both officials involved.
He knows about the issues. I have confirmed that he knows about the issue.
And he believes the sides of he believes both.
And what I said is he holds in high esteem both the GM of PCSO and Director Sandra Cam, whom he recently appointed to the post.
So, hindi po manggagaling, safe to say, sa PCSO ang tatanggalin.
I can
Just
make the
to remove
confirmation that the official who I was tasked to announce and belatedly told to hold in abeyance is not from the PCSO. Ayan, malinaw na. Okay.
Lastly na
Ay, wala na. Move on to another topic, please.
Sir, Sir, sorry. Sir, hindi pa po ako tapos. Last na lang. Doon sa announcement niyo kanina, yung reminder po ni Pangulo doon sa government officials not to consider any pleas from relatives. Does this baka lang has anything to do with the official to be fired? Hindi naman po siya involved.
Wala
sa
naman po.
Okay.
No? Although, actually, again, in the spirit of transparency, this was also relayed to me on the 30th to be announced on our next press briefing. No? So kung natuloy ang press briefing last January 1, I would have said the same thing, that the President is renewing his call to everyone in government that anyone who uses his name, be it relatives or friends, do not have any authority to use his name.
Why the need to renew this, sir? Did he discover any or find out any high-ranking official using his position to accommodate relatives?
Unfortunately, between the 23rd and now, I haven't seen the President. So this is something that was just relayed to me. But I'm seeing him this afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Vic Sumintak.
Secretary, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hindi kaya itong itatanong kong sisibakin. Sir, there was this complaint against Marina Administrator Marcial Quirico Amaro III by the agency's employees. Has the President seen the complaint? And if he has he given any directive or action on the complaint? Because based on the complaint, Mr. Amaro traveled more times than Chairman Ridon of PCUP, 11 trips for Mr. Amaro in 2017 compared to 7 for Chairman Ridon.
What is your question?
Nakita na ba ni Presidente yung reklamo ng mga empleyado?
Yes.
May action ba na ginawang Pangulo? Any directives para...
None so far. That's the answer.
So, can you
Kayo
confirm?
process of elimination kayo Alam mo, di ko alam Hello, in court that would be leading, Your Honor.
Pero pinaimbestigahan na ni Presidente.
I think he is always looking. He always looks at all complaints received by the Office of the President.
Sir, totoo ba nung ma-appoint daw itong si Mr. Amaro, ang kanyang backer ay si Dennis Uy ng Phoenix Petroleum?
I have no knowledge, but I confirm that that was in the letter of complaint.
Okay, thank you. Vic Sumintak, Pia Ranyada. Other issue na yan?
Ay, hindi. Pero may other issue after.
Okay.
Sir, just to follow up, this official who will be sacked, is he being sacked because of corruption, conflict of interest, or mga junkets na naman?
Like all presidential appointees, he's being sacked, or I do not know if he's still going to be sacked because of loss of trust and confidence. I repeat, presidential appointees serve at the pleasure of the president. The president does not even need to cite any good cause because that is the nature of a presidential appointment.
Sir, loss of trust and confidence because of corruption, conflict of interest, any of those things? Or it's just plainly
The president
loss
is
of
always
trust?
guided by the Constitution, no? That government officials must serve the republic, that they must lead modest lives, that they must comply with the laws against graft and corruption. So he's just implementing all the public laws affecting public officials.
Sir, next question, just on the use of Facebook by the Duterte campaign. I just want to get a statement from Malacanang. So is the Duterte administration, now in power after elections, continuing to use Facebook in the manner it had used during the campaign, meaning funding trolls and maybe even skewing certain mga discourse online through fake accounts?
Well, number one, as I have mentioned in, I think, a printed statement, no, because this is our first press briefing, all the candidates utilize Facebook.
No, sir, I'm asking about after elections.
Well, okay, during the elections, all the candidates utilized Facebook. We have today an assistant secretary for social media, who, as you know, is Assistant Secretary Mocha Uson. So we continue to utilize social media in promoting the accomplishments and the messages of the administration. Obviously, we don't use it for partisan or political purposes because there's no elections until 2022.
Sir, just to be clear about it, does the administration pay for trolls and fake news sites?
No, definitely not. If trolls are paid by government, they wouldn't have attacked me in the first place.
Sir, how then do you explain the majority of the presence of a lot of accounts, fake news trolls who are very vocal supporters of the government, but also very harsh attackers of the administration's critics?
You find trolls of this nature also on the other side of the political fence, defending the prior administration, attacking this administration.
But this has
I can assure
this
you
does not have the blessing
that
of
there
the
is no
administration.
budgetary line item for payment of trolls in the social media as far as this administration is concerned. And again, I can only point to myself as living proof that there cannot be any official funding or even sanction on the activities of pro-Duterte trolls because, as I said, had this been the case, then we would have prevented the vicious attacks against me.
Sir, lastly, in a radio interview, you mentioned that the president will make trips to South Korea, Israel, and India. I believe the India visit will be an ASEAN summit event. How about, sir, the visits to South Korea and Israel?
Well, I think these are planned visits so far. It's being discussed between the Department of Foreign Affairs and the countries that have invited the president. It's not yet definite, but I know that it has been mentioned. No? And these visits, of course, will have very specific goals. And part of a state visit or a working visit is always to promote trade and investments as far as the Philippines is concerned.
Okay.
Could we just know what months these trips will happen?
No months yet, no? The only thing I know is that this January is the ASEAN-India Summit, no? And I think it is on the 24th, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thank you, PM. Cedric, to be followed by Benji and then Laila.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year.
Sir, in anticipation of the possible negative effects of train or the tax reform law, may mga petitions po na nagsaservice or yung intention to petition, particularly, sir, sa transport sector. May we get the palace's
What
reaction
petition,
on this?
please? Can we be more
Yung
specific?
i-raise to 12 pesos yung particularly sa jeep po, yung pamasahe. How do we appease or how does the government plan to appease the public? Kasi may mga ganito anticipation na masyado na magiging mataas yung presyo kung mapagbibigyan yung petition, sir?
It's up to the administrative agencies concerned to rule on these petitions. No, it's not the president himself that rules on these petitions. They would have to go to the LTFRB, no, if they want to petition.
Ang sinasabi kasi, sir, particularly ng mga drivers, is parang sila naman yung on the receiving end ng adverse effect ng tax reform law. And being citizens, parang hindi naman daw sila medyo hindi fair.
Well, I do not know about whether there is empirical evidence, no, that majority of our jeepney drivers have this concern. But what I can say is that the proceeds of train will go back to the people in terms of infrastructure that is expected to have a stimulant effect on the economy,
Sir,
which will benefit everyone.
Sir, your thoughts din po kasi may analysis na 6 million yung may exempt mo from paying taxes, but 80 million naman daw will bear the brunt or the negative effect nung anticipated negative effect ng tax reform law, sir.
Well, someone has to pay for build that will produce positive effects for everyone, and of course, it is done through taxes. No? Taxation is one of the 3 inherent powers of the state, and for as long as it is approved by the people's representatives, which is Congress, it is acceptable in a democratic state.
Sir, on another matter, Speaker Alvarez, sir, said na one of the possible scenarios in 2019 may be no election if we can push if the government can push through with the federalism, sir. What is the palace's reaction on this?
Again, the president always looks to the Constitution as his guiding document. The Constitution sets the date for the next elections in 2019. So unless the Constitution is amended ahead of the 2019 elections, it will have to push through.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, may follow-up sa no election? Dexter Ganibe.
Sir, sabi ng House Speaker, possible ang no election 2019, pero ayon kay SP, Senate President, pwede din naman daw ituloy kahit may mangyayaring transition kung sakaling mang maipush yung federal system. Ano po ang pananaw ng Malacanang dito?
Well, the chief executive, the role of the president is to implement the Constitution and the law. As I said, it is a Constitution that sets when the next election is. The law required of Congress for election purposes will only enable the spending of public funds in that regard. No? So unless the Constitution is amended, which includes being ratified by the people prior to the date set in the Constitution, elections will have to push through.
Okay, thank you.
Copy. Clear.
Dexter, sa train, si Pia Gutierrez. Microphone, Pia Gutierrez. Thank you, Benji.
Sir, follow-up lang po dun sa train. Meron pong call ang grupong Laban Consumer for government to appoint a price czar to monitor the effect of or the impact of a train across departments. Ano pong masasabi niyo, sir? Sa palagay niyo, kailangan po ba ng isang price czar, sir?
Point well taken, but I think that would be superfluous because we already have the Department of Trade Industry performing that task.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Laila Salaveria.
Morning, sir. On
Yes, good morning.
the entry of a third telco player, according to Secretary Andanar, the role is open to other foreign players. Given that the president specifically offered the slot to China, will it be acceptable to him if another foreign player gets the
Let
role?
me be clear on this. No? The offer to China was made in a bilateral talk between the president and the Chinese premier. It appears to have been accepted because the Chinese government nominated China Telecoms. No? Now, we do not know if it will actually push through. As you know, the devil is always in the details. Now, I'm sure the Chinese side has been informed that we will have to comply with the constitutional provision that Chinese ownership will be limited to 40%, no? And that the Department of Information Communication, the ICT, has already said that they would want a Filipino consortium to own the 60% majority stake in these third telecoms. No? If for any reason this is not acceptable to China Telecoms, then we have no choice. No? We gave China the option, but if this is not acceptable to it, unfortunately, we will have to look for other players because we will have to honor what the Constitution provides, 60-40 in terms of owning a telecoms company. But there are no indications that China Telecom does not want to push through with the project. But unless it's actually up and going, I guess there is always a possibility that others may be involved. If for any reason China Telecoms or China decides not to push through with their commitment to start a third telecoms company.
But are you saying that China already has an advantage, or will the process be competitive?
No, I mean, right now, because it was offered and accepted, we will honor our word. But as I said, if for any reason China Telecoms or any company nominated by the Chinese government finds the 60-40 requirement in the Constitution to be unacceptable, then of course, that will give us now the option to offer it to other companies.
So parang China is the first option, and only if they refuse to comply with the provisions.
That's my understanding, no? Because it was formally offered in a bilateral talk between the Chinese premier and the Philippine president, and they have since nominated China Telecoms.
So wala talagang competition, sir. Walang competitive bidding in a sense.
Well, as far as the 40% stake is concerned, they have to comply with the Philippine Constitution. They will have to partner with Filipino companies with an existing franchise, because otherwise they would have to go to Congress for another franchise.
But it will be China.
So far as I know, it has been offered to China. We don't know what the details are, but the deadline is fast approaching. The President wants it up and about in the first quarter of this year.
Last na lang, sir. You mentioned in a radio interview that China wanted 100% ownership. Can you tell us more about that?
No, they did not want it. I was just observing that in the past, and this is prior to my stint as presidential spokesperson, one difficulty encountered by Chinese companies is they're not used to not owning an investment 100%. Okay, so I do not know if this is applicable to China Telecoms. I did not say it in relation to China Telecoms, but in general, I know as a private practitioner in the past that Chinese state-owned companies are always uncomfortable with not having 100% or majority stake. But as I said, that does not apply to China Telecom. I have no personal information that applies to China Telecoms.
Okay, follow-up. Ace, last four Ace, then Benji, Salarina, and last Rose.
Secretary, clarification. So there will only be a bidding for frequency kung hindi nagkasundo yung Philippines at China sa details. Tama po ba?
Bidding for frequencies. Well, I do not see. It is the Filipino corporation that will be awarded the frequency, and I know right now that there's some frequency that could be awarded to them through tender. No, so it's not as if we're offering the frequency to a Chinese corporation. We're offering the frequency to a Filipino corporation because it's a 60-40 enterprise.
So, okay, clarification. So if magkakaroon lamang ng openness sa ibang companies pag hindi nag-work out yung sa China, tama
Yes,
po?
if for any reason China Telecoms or China itself decides not to push through with the third telecoms, of course, we have the option to offer it to other companies.
Thank you,
From other
Okay,
Secretary.
countries.
thank you, Ace. Benji Liwanag.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year, Benji.
Sir, with regards with the
Naliligaw ka, Benji, ah.
reliever, alam niyo naman.
Okay.
Oo nga. With regards dun pa rin sa Philippine National Police, may sinabi po si Pangulo na may mga sisibakin siyang superintendents, which is colonel. Can you have
Malapit
can you
na po
give us
yan.
an update? on
Remember, over the break, no less than General Bato also made a similar statement that I have made. This is really the officers where we're just observing due process because they're not all presidential appointees. No? So we have to comply also with the PNP law.
Okay.
So we're in the process of completing with all requirements before we make the announcement of who they are.
Mauuna po kaya ito before yung presidential appointment?
When I was tasked to make the announcement earlier, there was also mention of this, that it's going to come out soon. They're almost done. And the President would want to announce it as soon as possible to send the message to the police that while the President stands by them when they are in the lawful discharge of their duties, when they are not, the President will be the first to discipline them.
So, kailan po ito, Secretary?
No time frame was
No
given,
time
but I was made to understand it will be very soon.
Okay. Next Tuesday will be the Nazareno. Any updates on the security, especially pagka Nazareno po, meron tayong problema. Nagtatanggal tayo ng
Cell
linya
site.
ng komunikasyon, cell sites, and also security. Are there any threats coming from any group, Secretary?
Well, I don't think there's any extraordinary threat. No, we will exercise the same kind of diligence that we have done in the past. This is already the second Nazareno for this administration, and we know how to maintain peace and order in the Nazareno festivities.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, last three. Celerina?
Good morning, sir. Regarding the President's reminder dun sa mga relatives niya, so how would you reconcile, like, in the case of the son-in-law, Attorney Manasseh Carpio, kasi somewhat, he was, or he's the lawyer of, like, one of the companies dealing with the government. So, paano po isa-separate yung ganun? Na hindi magkakaroon, like, ng influence peddling?
Well, I guess if he performs his duties pursuant to the rules of legal ethics, there should be no problems. No? But it's very clear in the rules of legal ethics that one should not take advantage also of any position, no? In the discharge of functions of a lawyer. And the President trusts that Attorney Carpio is familiar with these canons of legal ethics.
Sir, on another issue, the foreign minister of Indonesia will be having her courtesy call with the president this afternoon. May we know what's the purpose of her visit and what could be the discussion during the courtesy call?
Well, I do know also only about the schedule, and that's when I will see the president next. But I do not know the agenda. But the schedule described it as a courtesy call. So it's a courtesy call.
Okay, thank you, Celerina. Inan Dulong, microphone with Ace.
Sir, ano na po ang expectations ng Malacanang about the implementation of the jeepney modernization program? Because previously, President Duterte said he wanted na pagpasok ng January, phase out na yung mga lumang jeep. Obviously, it's not happened.
Well, you know, I think DOTR officials, at least when I was still in Congress, said that it cannot be done overnight. No? And that's why they have announced that 500 e-jeepneys will be made available immediately at the beginning of the year. No? And I think there was also a pronouncement made by DOTR that roadworthy jeepneys can continue until, if I'm not mistaken, there was a date set, no, if I'm not mistaken, 2020, no, which shows that it will have to be implemented in batches. No? The President, though, is firm in his resolve to modernize our public utilities, including the phase-out of the jeepneys. Obviously, it did not happen overnight, but it will happen in the long run.
Last, sir, as former, you were in Congress before. Sir, ano po ba yung mga government agencies na may legislative mandate? Charters, I mean.
Halos lahat naman,
Halos
other
lahat.
than those na forming part of the existing departments.
Okay, thank you, Ina. So, last question. Magtatanong ka pa, Pia. Last question, Rose Novenat. I'm sorry. Sir, pwede pa si Lanesca?
Yes, no
Okay,
problem.
Lanesca to be followed by Rose. Last question.
Matagal tayo hindi nakita, so go ahead, keep it going.
Good morning, sir. About yung sa Marcoses po, sa compromise agreement, even before Attorney Lozano submitted the proposal, the President already said that he is for entering a compromise agreement with the Marcoses regarding the ill-gotten wealth and other sequestered assets. Considering the President's statements alone, is the palace considering forming a legal team to study a possible compromise agreement or to hammer out a draft of such deal?
The President's statement actually was that he is for it, but he needs a law to authorize him to enter into one. So, just to complete the presidential position on the matter, while he's for it, it appears that his hands are tied unless there is a law authorizing him to enter into such a compromise agreement.
Sir, follow up on the same issue. So as it is, sir, there is no legal basis
Correct.
For
because in
us
fact-
to enter a compromise
Correct.
agreement with the Marcoses.
Correct, because we have criminal laws penalizing plunder, and it would be contrary to law to enter into a compromise agreement. No? Except under exceptions already identified by the Supreme Court. No? But as far as the position of the President is concerned, he needs a law.
Okay, thank you, Lanesca. Last question,
sir.
Rose.
And in fact, Attorney Lozano also appended the draft law, indicating that although the Marcoses have not given him any authority to submit the compromise agreement to Malacanang, he himself agrees with the position of the President that a law is indispensable.
Good morning uli, sir. Sir, bago nagbagong taon, may Person of the Year Award si Presidente galing sa OCCR, isang NGO funded by American-Hungarian billionaire George Soros. At the same time po, parang nagkaroon po ng mga pahayag din si UN Special Rapporteur Agnes Callamard. Sa tingin po ba ninyo may kaugnayan ito dahil may ulat po na si Agnes Callamard daw po ay isang Soros agent na nasabay po dun sa pagbibigay po ng Person of the Year Award ng OCCR na isang Soros-funded NGO rin po?
Well, in the first place, we don't want to give any credence to that award because no one knows what that award is. Have you heard of it prior to this year? We've never heard of it. It's not as if it has the status of the Nobel Prize. So initially, our position is just to ignore it because anyone can come up with awards, and I can come up with an award for Agnes Callamard if I wanted to, but I don't have the time. But anyway, as far as Agnes Callamard is concerned, I continue to await for her response.
Okay, kasi po last year sa speech po ni Presidente, may sinabi po siya na si George Soros daw po yung nagpopondo ng mga NGOs na umaatake sa kanyang administrasyon.
Well, I think it's a fact that the Open Society Institute does fund quite a number of NGOs. No? Is Agnes Callamard identified with the OSI? As a matter of fact, yes. I think Agnes Callamard would not deny that she was appointed to her post, largely also because of her connection with the Open Society Institute. Anong hindi pa sure? So that's just a fact. Now, as to Agnes Callamard's statement that I heard in saying that the 2 Filipina rapporteurs were elected, I think the fact that they have to be appointed by the UN Human Rights Council, constituting of at least 38 members, if I'm not mistaken, shows that there's a process by which a person is appointed, and that includes the consent of the members of the UN Human Rights Council. It's horse trading at its best at the UN. But the process always begins with a state nominating anyone for any UN post. I will have more on this, maybe tomorrow or next week.
Thank you, sir.
I will fully document my statement that they are partisan.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Rose. Pia, may question? No more? Okay, thank you, Malacanang Press Corps.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque. Thank you, Malacanang Press Corps. Back to our main studio sa Radyo Pilipinas and People's Television.